Something historic just happened in Africa, and the world wasn't ready for it. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the bold and defiant leader of Burkina Faso, just unveiled Africa's very first homegrown advanced aircraft. And get this, even Western powers are now trying to get a piece of the action. In a jaw-dropping reveal that stunned the aviation world, Traoré launched a state-of-the-art airplane, fully designed and built in Burkina Faso. This isn't some prototype or mock-up, this is the real deal. Sleek, fast, smart, and packed with next-gen technology. It's arguably one of the most advanced planes ever produced on African soil. Thousands gathered in Ouagadougou for the launch. Pilots, engineers, soldiers, everyday citizens. They all stood in stunned silence as the aircraft lifted off for its first test flight. Smooth, silent, powerful. The message was loud and clear. Africa isn't asking for permission anymore. It's building the future. Reports say the plane features advanced fuel systems, AI-powered navigation, and ultralight but tough materials that rival Western aircraft. And that's why the West is suddenly knocking at Burkina Faso's door. European and American aviation giants are quietly reaching out, hoping to buy in or partner up. But Traoré isn't biting. Insiders say he wants the tech, and the victory, to remain fully African. During the ceremony, Traoré spoke to the heart of every African when he said, "For too long, we've watched the skies while others flew. Today, we take flight with our own wings, our own minds, our own hands. This is for all of Africa." The moment exploded across the internet. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They all lit up with the takeoff. A proud wave of celebration swept across the continent. Many are calling this Africa's Wright brothers moment. But while Africans cheered, Western officials scrambled to understand how a country under sanctions pulled this off. Some point to quiet partnerships with Russia, China, and Iran as possible backers. But regardless of who helped, the result is the same. Africa is in the sky now, and it's not coming down. Here's how it all unfolded. On a dusty runway outside Ouagadougou, as the sun blazed across the horizon, military trucks rolled in. The crowd froze, cameras zoomed, tension hung heavy. Then out walked Captain Traoré, calm, focused, unstoppable. He said nothing. He didn't need to. In front of him stood a massive object under a tarp. With one sharp gesture, it was pulled away. Gasps, shouts, silence. A gleaming, full-sized aircraft revealed itself, dressed in the red, green, and gold of Burkina Faso. Built by Africans, for Africa. The crowd erupted. Tears fell, fists rose, knees hit the ground. This wasn't just a plane. This was a statement. Africa no longer crawls. Africa flies. And this wasn't some hand-me-down from Paris or aid from Washington. It wasn't leased or borrowed pride. It was pure, unapologetic African engineering, built in secret, funded without loans, constructed without permission. Traoré walked up to the aircraft like it was his flagship, his Excalibur. He laid a hand on its body and stared into the cameras. His words? "This is our new beginning. Africa will fly, with or without you." They laughed at him, said he was dreaming, claimed it was impossible. But while the world doubted, Traoré was building. Not in Europe, not in America. Right there in Burkina Faso, inside a no-access zone, behind fences and drones. A ghost facility, a revolution hidden in silence. No press, no IMF funding, no Western consultants. Just hand-picked African engineers, some trained in Moscow, others advised by Iranian and North Korean experts in metallurgy and stealth tech. They worked by night, smuggled in parts, kept every step off foreign satellites. And the money? It came from Africa itself, from mining revenue redirected away from corrupt middlemen and into this dream. Bit by bit, they built it. First the cockpit, then the wings, Then an African-made engine roared through the hangar, a sound never before heard on this continent. Western intelligence missed it. That was the point. Traoré's orders were clear. Don't announce it. Let the world find out when it's already flying. And fly it did. Within minutes of takeoff, African social media erupted. Twitter blazed. TikTok danced. Across the continent, people cheered not just for a plane, but for a symbol, a turning point. From Ghana to Kenya, students waved flags. Crowds danced. Radio hosts chanted Traoré's name. In Niger, papers called it Africa's New Dawn. Even South African politicians called it the boldest act of tech independence since decolonization. Meanwhile, in the West, shock. Boeing scrambled. Airbus called emergency meetings. French media stuttered, unsure how to respond. A leaked report called it a geopolitical rupture. Washington took notice. Their analysts raised red flags. This wasn't just a plane. It was a threat to the system, to dominance, to control, to the narrative. What if Mali builds the next one? What if Africa goes fully independent, outside NATO, IMF, and EU influence? That's the nightmare unfolding in real time. But Traoré? He didn't flinch. He didn't gloat. He just kept planning the next launch. Because this isn't about ego. It's about dignity, about a continent reclaiming its right to dream, build, and fly. For over a century, Africa was told to wait, to borrow, to beg. But today, that story ends. Not with speeches, but with wings. This aircraft is more than a machine. It's a message. To the West, Africa no longer needs your permission to rise. To African youth, you're not too poor to build. You're too powerful to stay small. And to the world, this is just the beginning. It wasn't just a Burkina Faso aircraft. It was Pan-African. Because every African saw themselves in that machine. Every child who had ever looked up at the sky and dreamed of flying. Every student studying science with no lab, no electricity, no equipment, just hope. Every young mind that had been told, you're too poor, too black, too African to build something that flies. This plane was for them. And the fear it ignited in Western boardrooms? It wasn't just fear of competition. It was fear of control slipping through their fingers. Because if Burkina Faso can build a plane, then Mali can build the next one. Niger can produce the engines. Chad can mine the rare metals. Guinea can back it with gold. And just like that, the global machinery of dependence starts to crack. That's the real threat. Not the aircraft's altitude, but its meaning, its defiance, its message to every former colony still tethered to invisible strings. You can rise, on your own terms, without permission, without approval. And that's what shook the world. Because this wasn't about aviation. It was about memory, about rediscovery, about what happens when a people remember they can fly. And the West? They didn't just watch. Long before the unveiling, their satellites were watching. Strange construction was spotted outside Ouagadougou. Unmarked cargo shipments raised eyebrows. Aviation-grade metals, encrypted communications hardware, thermal shielding. But there were no permits, no Western consultants, no IMF fingerprints. That's when the quiet war began. First came the businessmen, Europeans in clean suits with flashy offers and empty smiles. They approached the engineers with promises of partnerships, asked a few too many questions, and then vanished. No trace. Then came the cyber attacks. Burkina Faso's aviation servers were hammered, blueprints scrambled, internal comms intercepted. But Traoré was 10 steps ahead. His engineers had gone offline, working in isolated labs with no internet access and no foreign eyes. No leaks, no breaches. Then came the boldest move yet. Just days before the launch, 2 French nationals were arrested outside a restricted facility. They claimed to be energy consultants, but in their bags were miniature drones, encrypted flash drives, thermal scopes, and a laptop filled with surveillance data. They weren't consultants, they were operatives. Burkina Faso intelligence traced their links to a private security firm connected to a European spy agency. Their mission was clear: locate the prototype, sabotage the launch, capture it on video, broadcast failure, reinforce the myth that Africa still can't build. But they failed, because Traoré didn't just build a plane, he built a wall of loyalty, silence, and preparation around it. The spies were exposed, the facility was sealed, the final engine test was flawless, and when the aircraft finally rolled onto the runway, the message was clear. They tried to stop it, but they were too late. And here's the thing. To the untrained eye, it looks like just another aircraft, sleek, smooth, painted in Burkina Faso colors, gliding like a dream. But those who know better. This plane wasn't built just to fly. It was built to defend, to patrol, to adapt. Beneath its elegant skin is a modular internal system designed by ex-military engineers. Removable seating, reinforced undercarriage, rear bay ready for light surveillance kits or emergency payloads. It's not just a symbol, it's a platform. And that's what scares them, because it wasn't built in a NATO lab. It wasn't sanctioned by Boeing or cleared by the Pentagon. It was born outside the system, outside control. Sources say Russian defense analysts reviewed its schematics. Iranian specialists suggested tweaks for high-altitude endurance. Whispers from North Korea even hint at stealth enhancements that could make it radar-resistant during border patrol missions. Is it an attack aircraft? Not yet. Could it become one? Without a doubt. And that's the nightmare scenario. A fleet of Burkina Faso-made aircraft patrolling the skies of the AES bloc. No need for French drones. No American satellites. Just African sovereignty. Unfiltered. Unbothered. Imagine Traoré deploying 5 of these across the northern border. Watching, recording, responding. Without foreign permission. Without international oversight. That's not just independence, that's sovereignty with teeth. And the West isn't losing sleep over the plane's ability to cruise at altitude. They're losing sleep over what it means. That once Africa can defend its own skies, it no longer needs foreign boots on its soil. Ever again. The unveiling? That was only the beginning. While the media scrambled for headlines, while analysts fumbled for explanations, Traoré was already moving. Because to him, this wasn't about showing off a prototype. This was about ignition. Lighting a match that could spark a Pan-African aerospace revolution. And when he stepped up to the mic after the launch, he didn't speak like a politician. He spoke like a builder, a planner, a man with blueprints, not just speeches. And what he said next, no one was ready for. A national aerospace program, a training institute for African engineers, a research lab for propulsion, stealth tech and drones, a satellite deal in the works with no euro from the IMF, no debts, no signatures in Brussels or Washington, just Africa's own gold, manganese and rare earths, finally used for Africa's future. Within hours, applications flooded in. Young Burkina Faso scientists abroad ready to return. Malian coders, Togolese mechanics, Rwandan mathematicians, all drawn not just by an aircraft, but by a movement. For once, Africa wasn't being poached. It was being called home. And this time, not to serve under Western flags, but to build under their own. Captain Traoré said it best, "We don't just want to fly. We want to build the wings, the engines, the future." This isn't about copying the West. It's about outgrowing the comparison, becoming sovereign, unstoppable. Because Burkina Faso isn't just launching a plane, It's launching a generation, and that's what scares them in Paris and Washington. Not the engine, not the specs, but the message it sends. That if one country can do it, others will follow. Mali, Niger, Guinea, Congo. That Africa can stop exporting raw and start building finished. That cobalt, gold, and oil stay in Africa. And build Africa. That's the real fear, because this time, there are no sanctions to threaten, no loans to suspend, no narrative to spin. Africa is building, loudly, boldly, together. And when Traoré stepped forward at the launch, not just as a president, but as a symbol, the crowd knew. This wasn't a machine. This was a declaration. We will no longer be passengers. We will be the pilots of our own future. The roar that followed shook the tarmac. Veterans saluted, children shouted, "We can fly now!" Even the technicians, grease on their hands, stood with tears in their eyes. And just behind them, the next plane was already being built. Larger wingspan, dual-use modules, rumors of stealth tech. AES states discussing a joint aerospace command, satellite independence, scholarships in Pyongyang, Moscow, Tehran. But with momentum comes resistance. Drones at the borders, cyber attacks attempted, bribes refused. Because the message is clear, the fight has just begun. Africa isn't just flying. It's never landing again. The blueprints are drawn. The engines are warming. Africa has taken off. And this time, the world can't stop it.